Hello, and welcome back to the Lemonade Stand, specifically the Curious Coach's Lemonade Stand, with yours truly, Dr. Gena. And in a moment, I'm going to bring in our awesome guest for today's podcast episode. I'm very excited to have him here. I just wanted to once again thank you for stopping by in our little third space, our community spot that we use here at the Lemonade Stand, which is really a place to quench your thirst, to stop by. Here's something that might make you go, that might bring you a little bit of insight, that might resonate. And most importantly, to create that sense of communication and connection, because our community is something that is to be cherished, I believe. And so, with that, we are always going to sip, squeeze, and savor with style, always talking about how to turn life's lemons into lemonade. And if there is someone who is a fellow coach who I know gets what I mean when I say turning lemons into lemonade, it is my friend Dat Tran. So, Dat, I would love for you to introduce yourself to the good folks here. Tell them a little about who you are and what you do.
Thanks, Dr. Gena. I'm so excited to be here. You're so amazing. Hello to all of the listeners. My name is Dat Tran, and I am a stress resiliency coach. Coming from a very ambitious career at Microsoft where I dreamt big quite a lot, but burned myself out quite a lot at the same time, and they kind of went hand in hand. And I think a lot of that was due to what I experienced in the corporate world, but also due to my own need to endlessly pursue my dreams, ambitions. And so what I do now is I really go out and I help ambitious leaders, our current and future leaders and teams learn how to navigate stress so that when life sends stress their way, they don't stress about it, if it makes sense. To really build up that resiliency so that no matter what they want to achieve in life, they can become unstoppable without having to be set back by the failures or even lose trust in themselves, their mind, their body, and the people around them.
Yeah, that is so key and such a nice jump off from our last episode where we talked about trusting in yourself. And, I'm sure that we're going to dig up some of the intricate links between that and stress reactions and resiliency today. So that I would love to open up by just, if you would be open to sharing what's your definition of resiliency. I find there's a lot of disagreement, even when I'm working with my clients and I'll ask them, what does resiliency mean to you? I'll get very sort of, different, disparate responses. So what is it for you? How would you define it?
I've been looking not so much at the word resiliency, but I've been looking at two words combined, which is stress resiliency, which is what I really focused on. And what I loved about that question is reframing the way we think about it. So stress resiliency for me means being able to take on life's big challenges and failures and hardships without experiencing the stress that comes with it, because you have become so resilient. And if I put it into almost like a perspective, right? Imagine that you need to go pick up a heavy chair. And somebody who has not gained that physical resiliency will be stressed out trying to pick up this chair. They're going to get tired out. But someone that has done the work to build the skills, the mindset, the strength can pick up that chair and be perfectly fine and okay because they have built up that resiliency. Same goes with the workplace. Same goes with being in relationships. By building up resiliency, you will no longer get stressed out by the things that used to stress you out.
Thank you for that perspective. I'm hearing like that undercurrent of the muscle metaphor, right? I'm hearing resiliency as something that can be grown, built, and developed, as opposed to something that you're born with it or you're not.
Exactly. Definitely.
So, what are the kind of core elements or pillars that you would describe of stress resiliency?
When I think about stress resiliency, I have broken it down into three parts. And those three parts of stress resiliency is one, mindset. Like the way you think, the way that you talk to yourself, the way that you frame things into perspective can make all the difference in any point in time. So you can gain stress resiliency and you can lose stress resiliency just by shifting your mindset. That's one. Two is skills. We often think and we look at people who are so amazing. We're like, they were born amazing, but they weren't. They throughout time, throughout their life, throughout their kind of both professional and personal journeys, they built the skills that help them become more resilient in a certain area of expertise or multiple. And then finally is community. Like we can be or try to believe that we're as resilient as possible, but if we are not surrounded by communities that help us feel more resilient, help empower us, help tell us that we're amazing, remind us of all the amazing things that we've done, our resiliency goes down. And it's the same, which is that if we're surrounded by community that tells us that we're not good enough or that points out our faults, that, make us lose trust in ourselves, like you said in the last episode, right? Our stress resiliency goes down. And so it's really about learning how to develop the mindset, build the skills, and be intentional about surrounding yourself and putting yourself in communities that lift up your resiliency.
I love those. Those pillars are really resonating for me. When you're working with clients, Dad, do you find that there's one or two particular pillars that people tend to struggle with more than the other?
That's a great question that I haven't really thought about. But the way that I would think about that is um, all three in different ways. So, first, mindset. Like, I think mindset is probably the greatest opportunity for people because over time, right, with all the negative feedback, with all the challenges, with all the negativity that's been sent to us, right, what's happening in the world, what's happened in the world since the pandemic, our mindset has shifted to, I don't know if I'm as capable to be able to handle what's going on with the world. I don't know if the world is safe for me. I don't know if people is safe for me.
That's a
And when
good
we
point.
live
That's
in that
safe for me.
mindset, our
Mhm.
resiliency goes down. So we have to transform our mindset to say, people are safe, the world is safe. And even if people in the world are not safe, I'm so amazing that I'll be able to figure it out and get it done anyways, right? I'll be able to rise above the hurdles that comes from people in the world while reminding myself that there are amazing and people in the world. And I think community is probably where I'm seeing the greatest challenges right now because we all lived and breathed community until the pandemic. And then the pandemic hit and we all turned into turtles. Sipping like lemonade inside of little turtle shells, finding comfort with it, not wanting to go out into the world. And then many of us, especially the extroverts, they've gone out and lived in communities. But the people that are introverts, ambiverts, or have turned into introverts have slowly started coming out in community again. But then there's almost a social anxiety and fear of being in community because we felt so safe in ourselves. And especially with how the world is right now, being in community feels actually unsafe for a lot of people. And so, those are the two that I would probably focus on what people have the greatest challenges right now. And especially if you don't have that right mindset, being in community makes you feel like, oh, are people going to see me for who I am? I've changed since the pandemic. Things have changed. I don't know if I'm going to be accepted. I don't know if they're going to see me for the extraordinary person that I am, but they will. And I think that's kind of what I've struggled with personally, and what a lot of my clients is learning how to be in community and feeling safe in community again.
I'm glad that you called those 2 out. To be honest, that those were the ones that were resonating for me on a personal
Yeah.
level, were the mindset and community pieces, and you can really see how one is that they're just always going to interact and impact one another. They're so closely imbricated in each other, and when I think about feeling safe in community and even, you know, recognizing the self as being extraordinary and deriving resiliency from there, there's this very strong undercurrent of confidence. I'm just curious,
Hmm.
how do you see confidence playing a role in all of this? Where does it fit in?
Ooh, that confidence. And what I love about that question is really building the connection, the trust. I want to take it on a more personal level. I think a lot of my life, I I don't think I was confident in myself, but I was always confident in my potential. And that helped me go very, very far, but that also helped me feel like a broken record many of the times because I couldn't really trust myself. And what I realized, it wasn't so much that I couldn't trust myself, it was that my brain couldn't trust me. And I like to think about confidence now from almost a scientific standpoint as why having a mindset that isn't confident is working against us. Like what I've learned from really fantastic research, which I'm just going to focus on the core, is that when it comes to dealing with stress, our mind actually has two brain functions. Like one brain function is the emotional brain, which a lot of this is knows as the amygdala, the limbic system.
Right?
And the second is the executive brain, the prefrontal cortex. That's where all of our executive functions, critical thinking, problem solving, the ability to relate human to human like we are right now lives in the kind of the executive brain. And the emotional brain and the amygdala has one priority: to protect us,
Safe. Yes.
to protect us, and to keep us safe, but I almost think to protect us,
Yeah.
right? And when we are not confident in ourselves, the brain, the emotional brain, will take over, hijack us, put us in autopilot mode, send stress hormones, and put us in a stress response throughout our entire body so that we have the power to protect ourselves. But
As we
we all know
feel
that
it.
like it's doesn't protect us because when we go to autopilots, we are sometimes crappy human beings that makes a lot of mistakes. Are likely to make a lot of mistakes, right? And so we know that when we're in a stress response, we're not the best people because our brain puts us in autopilot and it makes decisions not based on rationality, but based on memory. And when we are confident, when we feel powerful, when we feel extraordinary, and feeling is not a fact, it's not a we are or we're not, it's just when we feel extraordinary, our emotional brain will say, wow, my higher self is confident, so I don't need to step in by sending stress hormones out the entire body. And that's what I mean by mindset. It's like we got to have the mindset that we are confident, we are amazing, we are extraordinary, because when we have that mindset, it allows us to be more confident and it allows our brain to be more confident in us so that we are in control and not our autopilot tendencies.
Doesn't turn off those executive functions, but
Exactly. I mean, how does that
go.
resonate with a lot of what you see in your clients?
Definitely. And, so much of what you were saying, I've spent many years teaching about unconscious bias. And I give my whole, all right, everybody, here's my neuroscience lesson for today, and go into the limbic brain and the executive functioning and where bias lives. It's in, as you said, memory. It's what's triggering the reptilian brain, the limbic brain, to take over and make important business decisions it has no business making, right? We want the executive functioning to be doing executive thinking for us. So all of that
Hands down.
really does resonate, and I still do see it with clients, whether it's that they're on the receiving end or sometimes what is, a more difficult, thing to hold their toes to the fire to as a coach, but it is definitely our responsibility, and I'm accountable for, and I take that responsibility very seriously, is to call it out when they're on the giving end. When,
Mhm.
let's take a look at different perspectives, reframing, as you said, different vantage points that will perhaps show you to be acting from a place of bias, from a place of the limbic brain, when you think you're actually acting from and making these decisions and moving from the executive functioning. But that's being coded, right? You said, you've said some amazing things about people recognizing that they're extraordinary. How does one do that? How do you find that confidence, that mirror that shows yes, I am extraordinary, and therefore, yes, I can move through this. I can thrive through this.
Mm. Through training, through practice, through the mindset shift, and through
Mm.
something I call stress magic.
Ooh, do
And
too.
something that I teach a lot of my clients.
Well,
First, we
what?
have to recognize that how extraordinary we are is not a fact. It is a perspective,
Okay.
right? I think what you were talking about in the last episode about how we've all experienced trauma in the workplace and at home, and heartbreak, and in in challenges.
Mhm.
And this is top of mind for me, and I know this is kind of a vulnerable space, so I like to share that. Like recently, I've been really reflecting on a heartbreak that I experienced a long time ago. And I think what made it so this relationship such an amazing experience is that that was the first relationship that I had where another human being had seen me for the extraordinary person that I am. They had propelled me on a pedestal and allowed me to find that confidence, that extraordinariness. And for the first time in my life, I felt so empowered. I didn't even believe that I could be that powerful until I met them. And then the breakup ended horribly. And I felt like with that, I had lost my extraordinariness. I had lost my belief in myself. And since then, what I've come to recognize is that that extraordinariness actually never went away. It was just hidden in me. But that breakup, what it also did was it tore me down because it told me that like I was no longer extraordinary. And I think that trauma had stayed with me for such a long time. It had imprinted this belief that made it so hard for me to believe in myself. And what I realized over time is that I don't have to live with that mindset anymore. I can train myself to live with a different mindset. And so what I did over time was almost like gratitude. I started listing out all the things that make me extraordinary. I started tapping into what makes my body feel extraordinary. What's so extraordinary about my body? I started looking for the extraordinariness in other people instead of looking for why they're out to harm me. I might look at how like beautiful their pink earrings are and how it matches with their smile, the lipstick, right? Your smile, your lipstick, your shirt, and what you're wearing. Like, and training my mindset that like I'm extraordinary, the people around me are extraordinary, the world around me is extraordinary, and start rewriting these imprints that we have in our mind, little bits at a time, 10 seconds at a time is all it takes. And I think if we can train our mind to look for the extraordinariness in ourselves and other people, we can regain that trust that I think these traumatic experiences left us with. And even in the workplace, right, which you probably mentioned
Definitely.
quite a lot, where we have a bad manager, we have an employee that betrayed us, we have negative feedback. We thought we were going to get a really great bonus and review, but then we just got thrown under the bus. It makes us lose trust in ourselves, but
Hmm.
it never took away from how amazing we are, even if we felt like it did. So we have to go back and look out for those extraordinary parts about ourselves again.
I love that. I have chills, and the words rewriting the imprints. Like imprint got me, and then when you talked about being able to rewrite the imprint, that made me feel extraordinary because that filled me with a sense of agency. That I have the choice and I have the ability to actually change the mindset. And so does, the fact that you're saying that extraordinary is a feeling, right? And therefore it's a perception. And that in an interesting way makes it feel more, again, within my sphere of control, more malleable. Okay, well then I can decide to change it.
Yeah. And what even comes up to me is like you have control, but your brain is always trying to take control.
Such a
And
weird thing to
so
think I'm wrestling control from my own brain.
to separate that, yeah, right? Like we have the agency, we have the control, we have the ability to say, "Hey, brain, I know you have these imprints, but like we're gonna rewrite these right now. We're gonna choose to look at life a different way,
Mm.
and it's gonna be a better way. I promise you, brain, it's gonna be a better way that's gonna help us both."
I love this. I love this because that shift in perspective, it doesn't even require, and this is something I find I work with my clients a lot on. It doesn't require, running away from that environment. It doesn't require, getting up and leaving that job. I mean, by all means, if you're working in a toxic workplace and things aren't working, yes. But it's the recognition that it's your mindset and your lens that is going to color your next experience. And then, I know I have run from a job thinking I can't deal with this environment anymore, and I get somewhere else. And the similar kind of drama repeats itself, and there comes a
Mhm.
point where you ask, "All right, how much of this is on me? What am I bringing here?" And the perspective is something we have control over. I'm always thinking about the serenity prayer, right? What can I change? What can I control? What can I not? And help me discern the difference between these two. And I think that's part of what I'm hearing in terms of being extraordinary and allowing yourself to, be your best and dream big.
Mm. Oh, I wanna highlight on something you said that I didn't realize. Oftentimes we leave the job, but we don't leave the mindset that the job had imprinted into our brains. And so we have to leave the mindset that the traumatic experience in those jobs uh, gave us behind.
And that's hard to do because that
Oh,
means
hard.
taking accountability. That
It is,
means
yeah.
saying, "Okay, what's my role in this?" Right?
Yeah.
How did I create the conditions for this to happen yet again in a totally different company, industry, part of the globe, whatever.
Yeah. Because if we don't, our brain is constantly going to go look out for those experiences to protect us in a
That's
really
it.
bad way, even when this experience not dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? We all of a sudden we jump into a new relationship with a new manager or a new partner, and they do something really nice, but that new thing reminds us of something that happened in
Yeah,
our
you get
past, and then we
triggered.
just triggered, and then our stress resiliency goes do the in the drain.
That's
Oh
very,
yeah.
very true. And so it's, how are you seeing things? And I love the lens of seeing things myself as extraordinary, as you put it, Dad, and helping my clients, as you do, see themselves as extraordinary, because it's empowering, because it creates greater space for agency as well as accountability, because it feels like something that I can work on and
Mhm.
change over time. And yeah, because I feel like it opens the floodgates again to dream big because you just keep constricting and getting smaller and smaller when you let the stress build up, right? So here's a question for you. What could get in the way if I want to really dream big? What kind of, error or mistake could I make? And how could the way that you work with clients help me? Or the way that you're describing seeing myself as extraordinary?
Gosh, that's such a great question. I have this image. Let's say your dream is to climb Mount Everest. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's such an amazing dream. So I'm just gonna book a trip to Mount Everest and start climbing Mount Everest, and then you pass out in the middle because you haven't developed the skills yet. You haven't developed the resiliency to go up that mountain. And I think what happens so much is that we think, I have this dream and I need to have this dream now. And so I'm going to jump into this dream and I'm going to rock it. And then we hit failures, we hit challenges, we hit negative feedback, and then it destroys us from within because we haven't yet developed the ability to face those experiences without it stressing us out. And working at Microsoft, I became a leader that worked with employees all across the world and mentored so many people. And the number one mistake that I saw a lot of people joining Microsoft do is that they feel extraordinary once they get to Microsoft. And now they're surrounded by a whole bunch of extraordinary people and they feel like imposters.
Oh, yes.
They then are surrounded by people who are telling them they're good, they're amazing, but maybe 25% of the people tell them that they're not good enough. And they focus on that 25%, and that 25% of negativity beats them down, and they feel small and they feel incapable, and they lose that resiliency. And then next thing you know, they are um, put on an exit plan. Not because they weren't skilled, not because they weren't smart enough, but mainly because they weren't resilient enough. And it's not just a personal thing, it's an intrapersonal thing as well. Because, like, when leaders come to you with a golden ticket, when leaders, have a business critical opportunity, they're going to ask one question. Yes, maybe dad is smart enough. Maybe he has demonstrated that he can deliver, but can he handle the stress that comes with this opportunity that I'm about to give him without ruining his life or mine or my team's life? Right? And if the answer is no, they don't have that resiliency, I'm going to go give it to somebody else. And then even if they stay at the company, they miss out on all these opportunities because they dreamt big without the ability to handle the stress that comes with their dreams. And no one else then can trust them either.
Powerful example that I'm sure resonates with a lot of people.
Yeah. And I think that's a mistake that I made so many times. I would say, yes, 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 I'm in, let's do it. And then I would burn out because I hadn't developed the resiliency. And oftentimes I didn't have a choice, but let's be honest, I almost always had a choice. Um, and I think I didn't know how to say no because I also couldn't handle the stress of saying no. That
Well,
comes with it, right? So that's another one. That's another big one
yes, yes.
is people can't set boundaries because they can't handle the stress that comes with the immediate rejection of the no or the pushback from the no. But I mean, how does that kind of click with what you see in your clients who dreamt big at some point and now at a point where they just feel lost?
Huge, huge. I'm thinking of certain firms, which I will not name, but the kind of places like Microsoft, huge companies, global scale. I'm going to say industry. I'm actually thinking a lot about management consulting is where I see this a lot in my clients, and it's because, in my opinion, my experience, you have just a good, as you said, a conglomeration of people with big brains, with high potential, with great ambitions, who are extremely conscientious, who are just very, your typical high achieving type personalities. And that's why I said that really resonates. Your story about people, you think you've made it, you've gotten into this firm, and then now you've got to stay here. And I just said to a client this morning, actually, comparison is the thief of joy. Because it was, she was saying, "Well, I'm looking around and this person's doing this and this person's doing that." I'm like, "Are you achieving your book of business? Yes. Are you actually exceeding right now? Yes." But she's stressed because comparing to others and feeling like I'm missing something or I'm not going to make it to the next rung of partner or because I just have to keep showing and proving. And that boundaries, I'm glad that came up in what you were saying because a lot of this gets traced back to not being able to hold boundaries. And I tell my clients all the time, listen, we're working on this together. I'm working on my own boundaries every single day. And it's because you recognize it's mission critical when it overlaps with so many other things, coaching topics that your clients are bringing to the table. So much of it stems from where are your boundaries? If I'm extraordinary, it makes sense to me. I need to protect my extraordinary. There needs to be boundaries around, time, energy, effort, prioritization, values, all of these things that get thrown up, into chaotic disarray when you get really stressed, right? When the rubber hits the road and it's high, um, yeah, I guess just really high pressure, high stress times.
Hmm. I was like, I don't know if I should say this, but I've been thinking lately, actually, the people who are the most successful oftentimes are the people with self-inflated egos.
No, I'm glad you said it.
Hands down, I'm gonna put that out, right?
I'm
And
glad you said. I had this conversation with my husband last night, who is, academic. We were both academics, and I said to him, like, we were having this, would you rather, and it was, if you had to lose either, your intellect or your confidence, which would you lose? And I immediately said my intellect, and he's like, what? I said, in the society and the world we live in, you'll get further with the confidence without the intellect than the intellect without the confidence.
100%. And there's two ways that you can think about that. One is a bad way, right? With a self-inflated ego, you make yourself sound like you're on top of a mountain and all the time. And then if you make everyone look like they're at the bottom of the mountain, that's a bad way to have a self-inflated ego. But the good way to have the self-inflated ego is like, I'm extraordinary, I'm amazing, I'm on top of this mountain. And when you're with me, you're on top of the mountain with me. And when you talk to people who are on top of the mountain, they're like, okay, you're my equal. Because, we're both at the top of the mountain. Let's do business together. Right. And when you're on top of the mountain and someone tries to set boundaries or ask you, you're gonna say no, because I'm on top of the mountain and I'm not gonna let anything tear me down from the top this top of the mountain. But if you
Mm,
don't have that confidence, if you don't have that self-inflated ego, you can't set boundaries because you're like, oh my God, I'm not at the top of the mountain. They are. If I say no, is it gonna take me down? And you know, that confidence, that ego, that like not so much the ego, but that belief in our extraordinariness is what allows us to say no. And when we believe we're extraordinary, when we walk around like we have this ginormous energy, people are going to be very careful as to what they ask us. But if you walk around feeling small, people are going to feel like it's very easy to take advantage of us.
the girl, you teach people how to treat you, right?
Exactly. Like if you people treat you how you treat yourself. And if you don't believe you're extraordinary, why should anybody else? You might be lucky and have a magical manager that treats you that way, but not for very long in today's age where the average employee changes managers every year. So we have to treat ourselves like we are on top of the mountain all the time. And it's, again, not a fact. It's a mindset and it's a skill that you can build.
Love that. And I love, that when you're on top of the mountain, I it made me think about ego versus belief in self, right? Because I think ego gets a hard bad turn, right? It's pejorative for a lot of people. Just without even saying an inflated ego or egotistical. I think people often make those two synonymous, ego and
Yeah.
egotistical, right? And that's
Yeah.
not the case. We're really talking about a healthy, as you said, confidence and belief in yourself. And I think when you're standing on top of the mountain and recognizing your own extraordinariness, not only does that make it easier for others to see that in you and for you to see that in others, I think it actually raises the vibe.
It
Like,
does.
to sound too esoteric, but it puts you on a different frequency that then attracts others that are operating at that same frequency of extraordinariness. I love that you've given me language to put to this.
And I think about two things, which is like one, when we give ourselves permission to stand on top of the mountain, we inspire everyone else that looks like us, that feels like us, that has the same background to say, you are worthy of standing on top of the mountain too. Right. And we walk around and people are like, oh, I want to stand on top of the mountain. So I need to work with Dr. Gena because she's on top of the mountain and I need to figure out how do I get there. Right. And then we also don't run into this problem like where if we feel like we're at the bottom of the mountain, other people feel like, oh my gosh, I have to take an extra step to not only work with that, but learn how to lift him up to this mountain too. And that's too tiresome. I'm going to
Yeah.
work with somebody else who's already at the top, who already feels like they're at the top. And so we magnetize more opportunities when we learn how to have that self-confidence and we give other people the permission to have that confidence too.
Mm.
And I think of ego, like you said, in a healthy way, because it's not the type of ego that throws everyone down, but it's the type of ego that lifts everyone else up. Like that is the inspirational and magnetic type of ego that I think we all should learn how to have.
Yes. It's everyone come up to the top of the mountain. It like the view from here is awesome.
It is awesome. Yeah.
Wow, this has
Oh,
been
wow.
incredibly inspiring, that. And it's really making me rethink some things personally and also how I can apply this when I'm working with my clients.
Before we end this, can I actually go back to one thing,
Of
which is
course.
stress magic? I think we miss that stress magic, right? How do we change our mindset?
Yes.
And so here's something I want to share that I think we all should need to know. We all need to know is that a few years ago, I was on a trip in Cabo, and there was this woman next to me. She looked outside and she was like, "Wow, Dad, the world is so beautiful. Look at those cactuses. Look at those trees. Look at the sky." And she was on this retreat with me, someone I just met. And I look outside and I was like, "I don't know what you see. I just see land. Like, how do you see all these extraordinary things that I don't?" And so I was like, "Oh, there's something wrong with me." But I was like, "Well, how can I change that?" And so what stress magic is training your brain to see extraordinariness in the world around you. If you've been through traumatic experiences, through challenges, if you have read the news at all in the last 5 years, your brain has started to believe that you're not as amazing as you should be. People aren't as amazing. The world isn't amazing. Your body isn't as amazing. So here's a little exercise that you can do. When you're not stressed and when you are stressed, you can just take a breath, just one simple breath. And after taking that one simple breath, just tune into your body. Maybe touch your hands and notice how amazing your hands feel and feel awe and gratitude towards your hand. By doing that, you will start to retrain your mindset that, oh, my body is extraordinary by looking for the extraordinariness in your body. And take a breath when you need and just think about one amazing thing that you did or amazing feat that you achieved today in the last week. Maybe the Spartan race that you did, or maybe the fight that you were able to get over. Maybe that time your manager gave you a negative feedback and they came back to you and said, "I was so impressed by how you overcame that." And by doing that, you are retraining your brain to say, "I'm extraordinary. My mind is extraordinary." And so those are two different ways. The third way is just taking a simple breath. And then afterwards, maybe looking at something extraordinariness in the people you're surrounding yourself with. Because your brain is going to be looking for reasons why they're going to try to stress you out. But just take a pause and say, "No, brain, I'm going to look for how when I met Gena, Dr. Gena, first time, she just made me feel like I'm in my tribe and there are such amazing people. If I can have people like Dr. Gena in my life more often, I'm going to be unstoppable, right?" And then finally, I think the news has trained us to believe that the world is dangerous. And so stress magic is just taking one breath and looking around in the surroundings, the trees, the colors of the sky, the cars, or maybe even something mundane and ordinary like a cup that has so beautifully been designed by IKEA artisans, right? And then through that 10 seconds at a time, through the stress magic, over time, what will happen is we will start to retrain our brain to say that actually I'm pretty extraordinary. My body is extraordinary. People are extraordinary. The world around us is extraordinary. And that's a lot of what I teach my clients is because in that moment that your brain is saying, "Oh, you're not extraordinary enough to handle the situation," you can say, "You know what? I am. The people around me are." And when we shift into this belief that we and the world around us is extraordinary, that's how we become unstoppable. And that's how we build that stress resiliency mindset to say, "Hey, mind, I'm better than this, and so are you. I got it. We got it." That's stress magic. 10 seconds at a time.
Love it. I love it. I'm working very intentionally right now on always reframing fear and anxiety responses or approaches for myself even to wonder and awe. And I
Yeah.
hear shift encapsulated in what you just shared. Dad, thank you so much for that. That stress magic is
Yeah.
woo, that's awesome.
Because we feel safe in the presence of the extraordinary. We feel safe when we feel awe and gratitude and fascination. That's why we travel, right? Is we
Yes,
travel because we go
yes,
look. That's we are retraining our brain to go find the awe and extraordinariness in the world and everything that we see in our travel.
totally. Oh,
Yeah. So thanks for letting me share that. That is
oh,
literally
thank
at the,
you.
the crux of all of my my kind of program, the coaching that I do is helping people retrain their mindset to say no to looking for danger, or to say no for letting their mind look for danger, but instead taking control, that agency we talked about, to look for the extraordinary instead.
Is incredible. Well, on the screen, you're going to find some information on how you can follow Dat because I'm sure you're as inspired as I am right now, y'all, and just wondering, how do I get more of this? Like, again, this is what we come to the lemonade stand for. I told you I was bringing the good stuff today. This guy's poured it,
Yeah.
and it is just fresh and sweet. Like, this is amazingly refreshing. I want to thank you, from the bottom of my heart, Dat, for my goodness, for first just connecting because
Mm.
I totally feel the same, when we first met, like, "Ooh, I found a tribe member." This is someone
Oh,
that,
yeah.
I can really, really resonate with, and today just completely demonstrated and proves that without a doubt. It's been an amazing conversation. I've loved listening and learning, with you and from you, and I think you've brought some amazing zest to today's lemonade stand. So thank you so much for your time here today.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Gina. You're so amazing. You're so extraordinary. I just feel like, wow, this is like I'm gonna walk away from this conversation feeling so great. And if there's one
Good.
thing I wanted to say, I also want to, see all the people drinking the lemonade from the lemonade stand and let you all know that like you were born to be extraordinary. You were born extraordinary. And at some point in life, you may have had experiences, traumatic experiences, challenges, or things that took it away, but you were never anything less than extraordinary. And when you can find your way back to your extraordinary self, that's when you're gonna gain the stress resiliency to achieve your wildest dreams and ambitions. You can do it.
Like a monarch butterfly finding your way home.
Oh
Your
yeah,
food throat
we
net.
can
What
do
about
it.
this? Well,
Oh
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you so much, Dat, and thank you to all of you listeners for stopping by and getting a little bit of this thirst quenching goodness with us. Really appreciate you as always. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing as new episodes will come up every week or two. I know I'm a little slower in the summertime, but it's always going to be coming. There's always going to be more great content and more great topics. And, let me know your thoughts too. If there's something that you're yearning for to find in your cup the next time that you come and stop by to sip, squeeze, and savor and style with us at the Curious Coach's Lemonade Stand. So until next time, be well and take good care.